Trump and his top leadership spent the weekend explaining the president's surprise decision to sit down with North Korean dictator Kim Jong Un. Their message, a unified one, they believe this is a legitimate move toward a denuclearized Korean peninsula, and they hail the administration's maximum pressure campaign.
A lot of people thought we were going to war, and all of a sudden they come in, they say we're going to have a meeting, and there's no more missiles going off, and they want to denuclearize. They're not sending missiles up. And I believe that. I believe that. I really do. I think they want to do something. I think they want to make peace. I think it's time. And I think we've shown great strength.
President Trump isn't doing this for theater. He's going to solve a problem. What's most important is what's discussed, and the clarity and the strength and resolve of this president and this administration.
A major reason why they're having this meeting is because the economic sanctions have a very big impact on both their economy and their ability to get pieces of material and other things they need for their weapons programs.
Joining me now is retired four-star U.S. Army General Barry McCaffrey, former National Security Council member and an MSNBC contributor. General, good to see you as always. You heard the optimism from the president, from Mike Pompeo, from Treasury Secretary Mnuchin. Do you share the optimism that North Korea is really ready to denuclearize for good?
No, not at all. We have two objectives. One is to try and prevent them from achieving an ICBM capability that can strike the United States. And secondly, I think we're trying to ensure that the human rights disaster in North Korea is mitigated to some extent. I can't imagine these talks achieving either one of those goals. It is good to change the rhetoric from publicly threatening North Korea with nuclear attack, which the president did at the United Nations, to trying some sort of dialogue. But I don't believe we're going to dissuade the North Koreans in any way from essentially trying to run the United States Armed Forces out of the region, from unifying the Korean Peninsula, and from being recognized as a nuclear power.
You know, a number of observers of this have commented that typically if you were to have a breakthrough in talks with a regime like North Korea's, you would have various levels of talks, and the reward for them going well would be a legitimization of Kim Jong Un with a meeting with the President of the United States. We seem to have skipped a few of those steps. Is that a good thing or a bad thing?
Well, I think there's probably less downside risk, Ali, to this, and many would suppose. I mean, they are a nuclear power. This recognition is one that Kim Jong Un desperately wanted. So to some extent, that's a victory. I'm not sure what the import of it is. I think the bottom line is dialogue is probably helpful. The economic sanctions have contributed to this willingness to talk. But the real question for the United States is, what is President Trump willing to give up when he doesn't get denuclearization? It's not going to happen. Does he loosen the economic constraints? Does he give them a peace treaty? Does he recognize them in the family of nations? I think the Chinese are probably very helpful, leaning on the North Koreans. They don't want a war in the Korean Peninsula. So the outcome of this is unlikely to be significant, but the dialogue is helpful.
So where we want the denuclearization of North Korea, what the North Koreans say they want is a unification of the Korean Peninsula between North and South, and the departure of U.S. troops from the region. The first one is entirely unlikely, even with a South Korea that is interested in having conversations with North Korea. And the second one, what do you say to that? Can the U.S. troops leave South Korea?
Well, there's always been an argument, I might add, to get U.S. ground combat forces out of South Korea and to eliminate the inevitable trigger decision that would be made if North Korea attacked the South. At the same time, the South Koreans, the Japanese, the regional partners do not want to see U.S. military power leave. So I think it's unlikely we'd make that misguided choice and withdraw. I'm not even convinced the Chinese want us gone either. At the end of the day, I think the Chinese probably see our presence, particularly in Japan, as more of a stabilizing than threatening influence.
General, let me ask you, the Trump administration is arguing that Donald Trump's rhetoric, the very stuff that you and I have talked together and that you've criticized, is what got them to the table, got the North Koreans to the table, the threats. Do you believe that?
I think the unpredictability, the volatility of President Trump, you know, like the crazy guy in jail, probably did contribute to a sense of anxiety in the part of the North Koreans. I mean, realistically, Kim Jong Un knows he's not currently able to fight a nuclear exchange with the United States. His conventional power is highly unlikely to be a significant threat just to the South Korean armed forces, never mind combined with the U.S. and regional allies. So it probably did have an impact. But I think the Chinese finally told them, look, we're going to contribute to economic isolation of the North Korean regime if you don't try and defuse this.
General, always good to talk to you. Thank you, sir.
Good to be with you.
General Barry McCaffrey, 4-star U.S. Army general, retired, and a MSNBC contributor.